Dr. Griffin is the author of 11 books questioning various aspects of the official 9/11 myth and has written or edited dozens of others in his long and distinguished career. Since 2004, Dr. Griffin has been known as the Dean of 9/11 Studies and the conscience of the 9/11 Truth movement.
It has now been almost 10 years since the 9/11 attack. A few people from the beginning started saying that the official account of the attack was false and that 9/11 was an inside job carried out by people and agencies in our own government. An emerging movement to make this case came to be called the 9/11 Truth movement. This movement argued from the beginning that 9/11 was a false flag attack designed to allow the Bush-Cheney administration and its Pentagon to attack Afghanistan and then Iraq. But in 2005, physics professor Stephen Jones started explaining why the World Trade Center buildings could not have come down without explosives. Due to some books and coverage by C-SPAN, professional organizations began to form, including architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. Now there are 1,500 members of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth who say it is not feasible that the planes caused the towers to go down. When people talk about the World Trade Center, they usually have in mind the Twin Towers. But a third building came down that day, a 47-story building 2 blocks from the Twin Towers, World Trade Center 7, which came down at 5:21 in the afternoon. Many people have not even known that Building 7 came down, because it was seldom, if ever, shown on television after that first day. And it was not even mentioned in the 9/11 Commission's report. Why this silence? On the one hand, scientists working for the government needed to say that the World Trade Center was not destroyed by explosives, but was entirely destroyed by the airliner crashes and the resulting fires. On the one hand, it was hard for the government scientists to give this explanation for Building 7 because it was not hit by a plane. It seemed that the building must have been brought down by fire alone. But fire had never brought down a building of this type. New York Times reporter James Glantz, calling the collapse of Building 7 a mystery, said, "Experts said no building like it, a modern steel reinforced high-rise, had ever collapsed because of an uncontrolled fire." Worse yet for the official account, the fact that Building 7 was not hit by a plane meant that there was no jet fuel to ignite big fires throughout the building. There were not many fires, and what they were not very big. Trying to make Building 7 seem similar to the Twin Towers, defenders of the official account suggested that flaming debris from the collapse of the North Tower ignited diesel fuel stored in the building, turning Building 7 into a towering inferno so hot that its steel beams and columns were weakened. FEMA, which wrote the first official report about the World Trade Center, called this its best hypothesis. But, FEMA added, this hypothesis had only a low probability of occurrence, which of course is scientific speak for there's no way that could have happened. Popular Mechanics nevertheless promoted this hypothesis, telling its readers that the official report by NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, would say that Building 7's diesel fuel had fed the fires for up to 7 hours. In a second effort to make Building 7's collapse similar to that of the Twin Towers, Popular Mechanics said that although this building was not hit by a plane, it was far more compromised by falling debris than the FEMA report indicated. Popular Mechanics thereby intended to refute the 9/11 Truth Movement's claim that the official account is implausible by virtue of portraying Building 7 as the only steel-framed high-rise to have come down because of fire alone. So they were saying it wasn't just from fire alone, it was from this enormous destruction of much of the building. However, when NIST finally released its Building 7 report in 2008, it had rejected Popular Mechanics' twofold explanation in terms of diesel fuel and structural damage. NIST said fuel oil fires did not play a role in the collapse of World Trade Center 7. NIST also said, other than initiating the fires in World Trade Center 7, the damage from the debris from the North Tower had little effect. Building 7, said NIST reports, was the first known instance of fire causing the total collapse of a tall building. NIST thereby said exactly what Popular Mechanics had assured its readers NIST would not say. Therefore, if World Trade Center 7 was brought down by fire without the aid of explosives, this was definitely an anomaly. I turn now to a second anomaly, which even more clearly violates laws of science. Building 7 collapsed symmetrically, meaning that it came straight down, having an almost perfectly horizontal roof line. In order for this symmetrical collapse to occur, all 82 of the steel columns supporting the building had to fail simultaneously. It is difficult to imagine how this symmetry could have resulted without explosives. Perhaps people may think that if the building had been entirely engulfed by fire, so that the fire was symmetrical, all 82 of its columns might have failed simultaneously, producing a symmetrical collapse. History teaches, however, that it is impossible for fire to cause a steel frame building to collapse. It would have been even more obviously impossible for the fires of Building 7, being on only a few floors, to have produced a symmetrical collapse. To believe these asymmetrical fires produced a symmetrical collapse would be to believe in a miracle. The fire also could not explain the sudden onset of Building 7's collapse. Even if we believe that the fire could have caused the steel to lose its strength, the fire would have weakened the steel gradually, causing it to start sagging. But they did not. One moment the building was perfectly immobile. The next moment, as videos show, it was coming down at full speed. As Australian scientist Frank Legge has observed, there is no sign of a slow start that would be expected if collapse was caused by the gradual softening of the steel. These two characteristics of Building 7's collapse, the symmetrical pattern and the sudden onset, are characteristics of a controlled implosion, in which incendiaries and explosives are used to slice the building's steel support columns so as to cause the building to come straight down. The reason to implode a building, rather than simply causing it to fall over sideways, is to avoid damaging nearby buildings. Engineering an implosion, in the words of a controlled demolition website, is by far the trickiest type of explosive project, which only a handful of blasting companies in the world possess enough experience to perform. Marc Loiseau, the president of Controlled Demolition Incorporated, has explained why. To bring a building down so no other structure is harmed, the demolition must be completely planned using the right explosive and the right pattern of laying the charges. If Moyers and Parry hold that Building 7 came down without the aid of explosives, then they are stuck with the conclusion that scattered fires in this building produced a collapse that perfectly imitated the kind of controlled implosion that could be performed by only a few companies in the world. They are stuck, in other words, with a miracle. Nothing has promoted American imperialism and distorted American democracy more than the big lie about 9/11. The 9/11 big lie is indeed a lie. Thank you very much.